Okay. Hello there. And yeah, I hope you're doing well today. Okay. So, anyway, yeah, for today's topic or today's discussion, we will be talking about music genres. Okay. Now, for the different types of music genres, we have blues, classical, country, electronic, international, jazz, Latin, pop, rock, R&B, rap, and reggae. Okay, now for the first music genre on blues. Blues here is a vocal and instrumental form of music based on a pentatonic scale and a characteristic 12-bar chord progression. Blues originated in the deep south of the United States around 1860s by African Americans. Blues incorporated spiritual shouts, works, songs, and chants that found its earliest stylistic roots in West Africa. Blues has been a major influence on later American and Western popular music, finding expression in ragtime, jazz, big band, rhythm and blues, rock and roll, country music, conventional pop songs, and even modern classical music. Okay, so one of the popular artists on blues is Riley B. King. Okay, from 1925 to 2015. He is known professionally as B.B. King, was an American blues singer-songwriter, guitarist, and record producer. He introduced a sophisticated style of soloing based on fluid string bending, shimmering vibrato, and staccato, picking at influence. Many later blues electric guitar players. Okay, now on classical music is generally a classification covering music composed and performed professionally by trained artists. Classical music is a written tradition. It is composed and written using music notation, and as a rule is performed faithfully to the score. In common usage, classical music often refers to orchestral music, and in general, regardless of when it was composed or for what purpose. Okay, now film scores and orchestral arrangements on pop music recordings are some examples of classical music. Rachmaninoff in 1873 to 1943. Now, Rachmaninoff was a Russian composer, a virtuoso pianist, and conductor of the late Romantic period. He belongs to the aristocracy of composers, and no two of his piano pieces are alike. Each one creates its own world. He lays his soul before us in music, like the Second Symphony, yet it is a noble as much as passionate. And on classical crossover, Maxim Vika, Mervika, in 1975 to present, the piano player, and his first album gave a new spin to great compositions by Handel and Chopin. Since its release in 2003, it has been successful in Asia, where it has achieved a gold status in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and mainland China. Okay. Platinum in Taiwan and Croatia, double platinum in Hong Kong, making him the best-selling breakthrough artist of the decade in classical crossover, okay, which earned him the title Speedy Pianist. On country music, it is defined as a style and genre of largely string-accompanied American popular cowboy music of the West, usually vocalized and generally simple in form and harmony, okay, and typified by romantic or melancholy ballads, accompanied by acoustic or electric guitar, the banjo, the violin, and harmonica. The phrase country music first appeared in the early 1500s, and it describes a type of music denoting everyday life in a rural town or region. Okay, now, one of the popular country music artists is Jimmy Rogers in 1897 to 1933. James Charles Rogers was an American singer-songwriter and musician who rose to popularity in the late 1920s, widely regarded as the father of country music and the man who started it all. He is best known for his distinctive rhythmic yodeling, and he became the most influential musician to generations of country music artists. On electronic music, this is a music that uses electronic musical instruments, digital instruments, or circuitry based music, okay, technology in its creation, using electroacoustic music or a combination of electronic and electromechanical. Okay. Electronic music allows flexibility and creativity in the music production and play, including voice modification and background beats. Music made from electronic generators was first produced in Germany. Okay, this was in 1953, while Japan and the US at the beginning of the 1950s. Subgenre is called electronic dance music or EDM. So an example of an electronic artist is Jean-Jacques Perret from 1929 to 2016. Jean-Marcel Leroy was a French electronic music producer and was an early pioneer in this genre. He is known for being a member of the electronic music duo Perret and Kingsley with the German-American composer Gershon Kingsley. Perret became the first European artist to embrace electronic instruments like the keyboard, audio line, and the Moog synthesizer. Okay, now, for international or world, international track is defined as a well-known category time period for international tune. For instance, folk, religious, traditional music, and so on. This song is regularly created and played by using gifted and indigenous musicians and commonly percentage the identical connection with their vicinity of foundation. The term is credited to Robert E. Brown, an ethnomusicologist, and became increasingly popular and utilized in the media and music sector as an advertising device. Okay, so we have here an example of an international or world artist, Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan from 1948 to 1997. He was a Pakistani singer who is considered one of the greatest performers of Gwali, a Sufi Muslim devotional music characterized by simple melodies, forceful rhythms, and energetic improvisations that encourage a state of euphoria in both local and international listeners. Qawwali originated in the 12th century Persia, and the lyrics are based on medieval Sufi poems, which express love and deep uh, religious faith. Okay. Now, on jazz. Jazz is a broad style of music characterized by complex, sophisticated harmony, syncopated rhythms, and a heavy emphasis on improvisations. Black musicians in New Orleans, Louisiana, developed the jazz style in the early 19th century. Okay, where musicians like Jelly Roll Morton, King Oliver, and Louis Armstrong borrowed heavily from ragtime, blues, and second line horn sections from parades, which led to a brand new genre of American music. Okay, so an example of a jazz artist is Louis Armstrong in 1901 to 1971. Okay, Satch or Pops, as they fondly call Louis Armstrong, was a musical innovator. He transformed jazz with his powerful a solo voice, which was at once musically advanced, soulful, rich, and irresistible. One of this country's first black superstars, trumpet player Louis Armstrong had an immeasurable influence on jazz, popular music, pop culture, and race relations. On Latin music encompasses a wide variety of styles, including influential genres such as cumbia, bachata, bossa nova, merengue, rumba, salsa, samba, son, and tango. Original Latin American music is performed in Spanish, Portuguese, and to a lesser extent, French. Okay. Now, the musical style appeals to people of all ages and backgrounds because of its rhythmic beats and catchy upbeat vibe. It has never mattered if the lyrics were in English, Spanish, or both. Okay. An example of a Latin artist is Tito Puente Jr. from 1923 to 2000. He is known as the king of Latin jazz. It was pioneering the force in Latin music, known for fusing styles and putting a big band spin on traditional Latin music. In 1948, Puente formed a band that would become known as the Tito Puente Orchestra. His popular releases, his best-selling album in Europe and America was Dance Mania in 1958 and Oye Como Va in 1963, a single in the album El Rey Bravo. On pop music, now pop derived from a word popular is a separate genre. It consists of similar or simple patterns of music and rhythm. The main elements of pop music is patterns, which are easily or rather easy to remember and more likable than the complex ones. Also, pop music usually include repeated choruses and hooks, written in a basic format, which often diverse chorus structure. The rhythms or tempos that can be easily sang along and danced to. Okay, so much of pop music also borrows elements from other styles, such as rock, urban, dance, Latin, and country music. Okay, so an example of pop artist was the Shangri-Las from the 1960s. The all-American pop girl group in the 1960s, they charted with several hits documenting teen tragedies and melodramas in their songs. Okay, they remain known for their hits Remember, Give Him a Great Big Kiss, and in particular Leader of the Pack, which went on to number 1 in the US in the late 1964. Along with the Shirelles and the Ronettes, the Shangri-Las were among the greatest pop girl groups ever hit the entertainment industry. Okay, another popular pop artist is Michael Joseph Jackson, okay, from 1958 to 2009. Michael Jackson set and broke records throughout his entire career. In 2000, he became the biggest selling artist of all time with 380 million records sold. His song Thriller still holds the record for most copies of a single sold 110 million, and the list of records he broke is seemingly endless. In 2009 alone, he was the most awarded person, artist, entertainer with 372 recognized awards, worthy for the title the King of Pop. On rock music is an umbrella term to describe music typically characterized by persistent, strong drum beat and amplified, as well as often distorted electric guitars. Now, rock and roll, on the other hand, is a subgenre of rock music which evolved in the early 1950s, okay, from Chicago's blues, jump blues, and big band swing. Rock music has also embodied and served as the vehicle for cultural and social movements, such as the Mods and the Rockers in the UK and the Hippie, which spread out from San Francisco in the US in the 1960s. Okay, now an example of a rock artist is Chuck Berry from 1926 to 2017. Charles Edward Anderson Barry was an American artist, okay, singer, songwriter, and guitarist, one of the pioneers of rock and roll music. He is known for his songs including Maybelline and Johnny B. Goody. In 1972, John Lennon labeled Chuck Berry as my hero, okay, the creator of rock and roll. In 1986, Berry labeled John Lennon as the greatest influence in rock music. Okay, now Lennon was a frontman for rock and roll band The Beatles. For glam and metal rock, okay, Queen in the 1970s to 2017. This is a British rock band with a fusion of heavy metal and glam rock. The Camp Theatrics made it one of the most popular groups of the 1970s because Queen crafted an elaborate blend of layered guitar work by virtuoso Brian May and the overdubbed vocal harmonies, enlivened by the flamboyant performance of frontman and principal songwriter Freddie Mercury. Queen albums had more weeks on UK charts than in any other band, including the Beatles. Now, for rock and roll, an example of rock and roll is the band Beatles from 1926 to 2017. The Beatles were an English rock band that became arguably the most successful act of the 20th century. They contributed to music, film, literature, art, and fashion. They made a continuous impact on popular culture and the lifestyle of several generations. Now, the group whose best known lineup comprised John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr. They are all regarded as the most influential band of all time. Another glam rock artist, you have Tina Turner from 1939 to present. Born Anna Mae Bullock, Turner is an American-born Swiss singer. Okay? Singer, songwriter, actress, and widely referred to as the Queen of Rock and Roll. She is regarded as one of the greatest and best-selling music artists of the 20th century, and her retirement concert entitled 2470, or rather 24/7 Tour in 2000, Wembley Stadium marked her 50th year in music, in which at 73 she successfully concluded the 90s shows touring Europe, US, and Asia. On R&B, R&B stands for rhythm and blues. Okay, now it is another music genre whose origin is from African American cultures, and the music style is soulful and moving. In the early 1950s, R&B was used to describe blues for blue records. In the mid 50s, it described music styles whose origin was from or included electric blues, soul music, or gospel. In the 80s, contemporary R&B was introduced, and this type had elements of dance, hip hop, funk, and soul, and yeah, this became the most popular form of R&B with globally recognized artists that we know today. An example of an R&B artist is James Brown from 1933 to 2006. James Joseph Brown was an American singer-songwriter, dancer, musician, record producer, and band leader. The central progenitor of R&B, funk music, and a major figure of the 20th century music. He is also often referred to by the nicknames Godfather of Soul, Mr. Dynamite, and Soul Brother Number One. His Pure Dynamite live at the Royal Concert was one of his best-selling albums that stayed on chart for 22 weeks. On rap music, okay. Rap is a musical form of vocal delivery that incorporates rhyme, rhythmic speech, and street vernacular, which is performed or chanted in a variety of ways, usually over a backing beat or a musical accompaniment. The components of rap include content, flow, and delivery. Rap developed by disc jockeys and urban black performers in the late 1970s, wherein recurring beat and pattern provides the background and the counterpoint by a vocalist or vocalists. An example of a rap artist is Tupac Amaru Shakur from 1971 to 1996. Okay, so Tupac was an American rapper and actor who came to embody, came to embody the 1990s gangster rap aesthetic, and his death became an icon symbolizing noble struggle. He has sold 75 million albums to date, making him one of the most influential artists of all time. A sensitive, precociously talented, and troubled soul, Tupac was gunned down in Las Vegas on September 7, 1996, and died 6 days later. Okay, now, his murder has never been solved up to present. It has never been solved. Now, another rap artist, popular during our time, is Eminem from 1972 up to present. Marshall Bruce Mathers III is an American rapper, record producer, and actor who was known as one of the most controversial and best-selling artists of the early 21st century. As Eminem, he made a name for himself in the hip hop underground, both as a solo artist and as a member of the Detroit based rap sextet, D12 or the Dirty Dozen. Big Sean to Compton's finest Kendrick Lamar were Eminem's biggest influence. Okay, on reggae. Now, reggae emerged in the 1960s and is a genre originated in the Caribbean. and it came to their emotional outlet to express thoughts and feelings about life, love, and religion. Okay, meaning the Rastafarian influence. Reggae has the intensity of soul music, the light touch of ska, and the spiritual center of the Jamaican cultural elements. The music is famed for the rhythmic patterns heard in percussion, bass lines, and rhythm guitar parts. Reggae word origin is reggae, which means rags or ragged clothes. By the 1970s, it had become an international style of music. Okay, an example of one of the world's popular reggae artists is Bob Marley, okay, from 1945 to 1981. Robert Nesta Marley was a Jamaican singer-songwriter whose distillation of early ska, rocksteady, and reggae musical forms blossomed in the 1970s into an electrifying rock-influenced hybrid that made him an international superstar. Okay, so Marley's influence was not limited to simply making music for the sake of entertainment, and he was most noted for his music to spread the message of Rastafari. Okay, now, for the emergence of a new genre, we now have the K-pop or Korean pop. This is an internationally popular or aesthetic music driven, style bending, trend setting music hybrid of the 21st century. Okay, originating in South Korea, K-pop draws influence from a range of genres like pop, experimental rock, hip hop, R&B, electronic, and dance or EDM. K-pop idol groups are a global phenomenon with millions of diehard fans all over the world. Okay, in the last 2 decades, the K-pop industry has become a cultural sensation, continuing to grow in popularity as groups like Wonder Girls, BTS, and Blackpink break barriers to achieve worldwide success. Okay. Now, K-pop is also one of the Korean waves, or also called as Hallyu, a term referring to the popularity of Korean pop culture and Korean TV shows, music, and movies across Asia and other parts of the world. Some prominent characteristics are usually large group, hybrid sound, unique style, systematic training, extensive choreography. Okay, so those are some of the things that we could look into in observing K-pop artists. Okay, an example of a K-pop artist is the Wonder Girls. They debuted on February 2007, and 2 years later, their hit singles "So Hot" and "Nobody" was released in the United States, which charted at number 60 or 76, number 76 on the Billboard Hot 100, making Wonder Girls the first South K-pop group to enter the chart, okay, and the global market. Now, yeah, according to Piet Mondrian, the truly modern artist is aware of abstraction in an emotion of beauty. Okay, so for the different types of music genre, I hope that also enlightened your knowledge on the different kinds of music that we all listen to on a daily basis, depending on the mood that you have. Of course, music has evolved so much, okay, since time immemorial. Okay, so for music genre, again, it is a classification system that classifies music into different styles based on certain features or conventions, like rhythms, harmonies, melodies, instrumentations, and themes. We have just previously discussed about the different kinds of music genre, like pop, rock, jazz, classical, hip hop, EDM, country, and folk music. Okay, so I hope by then you'll be able to differentiate one from the other. Okay, so anyway, that's it for today on music and the different kinds of music genre. I hope you were able to learn something from our discussion. Okay, so thank you so much for your time and God bless you.